Toby,
I
jelly.
Swear to God.
Do not shit again.
I'm looking at you.
He has returned. Get the Lysol.
Get out of here,
It'll
bitch.
kill any odor.
Get out of here.
My cats are both mutually wreaking havoc.
Yeah, I love them very much.
Anyway, you want to yap about Return?
Yes.
Talk to me about everything you love about Return. Oh, you have little notes?
I made a little list. Today, I was thinking one of the things, amazingly, there's no sex pests in the movie. As far as...
I mean, Brian Peck.
Okay, there is a sex pest in the movie.
But the characters are not sex pests.
But somehow it's an 80s comedy and a horror comedy at that. And there's not any, like, weird rape jokes or, like...
There's a lot of nudity, and still they're just like, fucking put on clothes, trash.
Yeah, it's somehow not, like, any weird predatory dudes or any... And that baffled me. I love the soundtrack of it.
Oh, the soundtrack is... I have some weird fun facts about the soundtrack.
I was listening to someone else talk about the soundtrack and being like, I wouldn't bop to this in the yada yada. And I was like,
what?
Well, you're wrong then. I'm sorry.
Do you listen to fun rock music, and do you like punk culture in the first place?
They were like, it's like a knockoff of everything else in the 80s. And I was like, I don't agree with you.
Well, first the movie actually came out in 85, so how is it a knockoff of everything in the 80s?
They're like, it's a knockoff Guns N' Roses. I don't agree with you. Oh, the pacing in it, I think, is immaculate. Like,
it's fun. I think that it uses the soundtrack to mark 3 really distinct acts. Like, every time we're at a big shift, they're like, there's a music drop, we jump into it, and you go, okay, something's changing. We're taking it up a notch.
And I think, I can't think of any space in it that is dead space. And maybe that's because I don't like emotional, like... Because I'm not here for character emotional development in a movie like this or anything.
No, and the emotions that are there are very human, though. Like, you still get lots of, there are sad moments, there are moments that feel legitimate baked into this little comedy, but you don't need anything more than that. It's just them right now, in this moment, in these few hours.
You don't have a sidebar of, like, lingering emotional conversations for the most part. The only thing that even comes close to it is Tina, like, in the chapel.
Yeah.
When they lock Freddy in there. And that is, like, the only thing I can think of.
And even then, they really don't talk much. No. It's just, they're sad because it's a really sad thing that's happening.
Otherwise, they don't... When people try to use, like, emotional character development in horror movies, but it happens, like, at heightened points during action, you don't have time for this. The effects in it, I think, are some of the best balanced quality and camp between anything. It's my second favorite zombie puppet of all time. Like, the Tarman zombie costume.
The Tarman is excellent.
It is, like, probably my second favorite zombie design of all time. Second only to the creature in the sewer that the man turns into in Return of the Living Dead 3.
Oh, yes! Oh,
like
that one's so
man.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, I love Return 3.
Yeah, I know.
I love this movie. I love that the zombies are just as smart and just as fast and just as regular as they were as people. Like, they do not lose their intelligence. They don't lose their capacity to speak even. They're just groaning because they're in pain.
Yeah.
But it opens the opportunity for a lot more comedy on both sides as opposed to it just being put on, like, one shticky cast,
Yeah, and I think it's hilarious, the amount of cultural and film influence that the movie has, like, that it's a zombie milestone as far as intelligent zombies, fast zombies.
Yes, brains. It's the first movie where zombies want to eat brains.
I know, and to get that in a movie that is, I mean, it's B horror, but it's not, like, B- horror. I mean, it's not a cheap movie, but it is just, like, wacky. To have something this wacky also be important enough that it influences decades of zombie movies afterwards. I love that for them.
It's, good for them.
Good for you.
Comedy does something. Comedy exists in horror, and it's not less.
It's better.
I feel like a lot of people judge me when they're talking about, like, what's your favorite zombie movie? And the only one that's a comedy that people find acceptable is Shaun of the Dead. And that's because Shaun of the Dead is, it's so meta. And I'm like, what if it can just be funny? And I like Shaun of the Dead, fine. I'm not wild over it, but I think it's fun. But I think that horror comedy has a real place in the genre.
I do like Shaun of the Dead.
I know, but
I don't like it better than
shitting
Return.
on it, though. It's exactly,
you know what I mean? It is such a different type of comedy.
Oh, yes.
In a totally different realm. As far as its horror aspects, I think it's a lot less of a classic schlock.
Yeah, the stakes seem higher for a lot of it. The characters are in it a little bit more, and that's that meta piece. Like, this movie is not meta. Shaun of the Dead is playing with some meta concepts, and that's fine. Like I said, I don't hate it. It's just not my bag. But if I'm looking for a zombie comedy, for me, like, this is the zombie movie. But also, my other favorites are not respected, so it's fine.
That's fine.
I love Dawn, okay?
I know. It is respected. I don't understand how it's respected the way it is my problem. I understand how it's respected as a milestone in horror cinema and the fact that it's got interesting concepts, but it's so slow. And it just is not...
I like the mall.
I like that it's in a mall. You know what else has a mall? Fucking Chopping Mall.
Yes.
Like, I like a mall, but I
Yes.
don't need, like...
Domestic life. Oh, it's so relevant to the theming.
It is. If you freaking cut out 20 minutes of random junk you don't need.
Oh, I love it.
If it was a tighter movie, it would be enjoyable, but it's too long.
I understand. I love it, but I understand.
Yeah.
But we didn't watch Shaun of the Dead, and we didn't watch Dawn of the Dead.
No.
Today, we watched Return of the Living Dead. This is Scary Accurate. I'm Kimberly.
I'm Cas. Hi.
It's a horror review podcast because we're sick of other people getting it wrong. We both love this movie. We went to a really special screening of it earlier this year, which was fun. We like to wear the costumes. We do Freddy and Trash when we go out. Unfortunately, there is an issue that no matter what, even when you're at a special Return of the Living Dead event with Return of the Living Dead merchandise, nobody recognizes Freddy for some reason.
I don't understand.
I don't get it.
First of all, there were fake fans there.
Fake fans.
I don't say. People came and they, didn't know what
The
our
movie?
costumes were, and I
know.
Which, how dare anybody come see a movie for the first time?
How dare. Okay, but it came out in 1985.
I know.
All right, they had a chance. Oh, man, but we absolutely love this movie. Cass, this is your favorite movie, right?
It's hard.
You've said so before.
It's hard to make things. It's hard to divide when there's so many genres in the world. But it is definitely my favorite horror comedy. It might be my favorite horror movie in the sense of my favorite non-serious horror movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I feel like
fair.
I have to divide them into two categories, but yeah. Don't ask me what my favorite series is.
That's okay.
I'm not prepared
I have a
to
hard time dividing them because some of my favorites are ones that really toe that line, like Pearl and The Substance. I love these movies, but part of it is that they really ride that line of serious and not serious. But this movie is not serious at all. Do you want to jump in?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Let's do a little roll call of the people who are in it and where you might know them from. So this came out in 1985, and it was written and directed by Dan O'Bannon, who wrote the Alien screenplay. So the cast is kind of broken into two groups. We've got the employees, and we've got, I call them the punks throughout my notes, but they're not necessarily just punks. They are this...
It's the Breakfast Club.
It's the Breakfast Club. They're this group of people, it's the Breakfast Club if most of them were punks, and then there were just a couple of random preppy kids who didn't belong there.
It's the Shmeakfast Club.
It's the Shmeakfast Club. I like that. So for the employees, we've got Frank is James Karen, Freddy is Tom Matthews. Both Frank and Freddy, both James and Tom, reappeared and returned to as totally different characters. I know. Apparently Dan just really liked working with them.
It's a garbage movie, man.
I haven't even seen it. I skipped to 3 because you told me how bad 2 was. So I didn't spend time with it. And then Tom Matthews is also in Friday the 13th 6. We've got Clu Gulager as Bert, and he's also in Nightmare on Elm Street 2. and Ernie is played by Don Calfa. Now, Dan O'Bannon said that Bert and Ernie being best friends in this movie, also obviously having the same names as the famous Bert and Ernie, was a total mistake, and that it wasn't intended and it's not a reference. So I guess sucks to suck, Sesame Street.
Do you know why?
No,
do you remember why that?
No, I don't.
Bert is the one who is the owner of the business.
Yes, Ernie's the mortician.
Ernie is a reference to a Nazi.
Which I have
Nazi.
all sorts of Nazi fun facts, unfortunately, but it is a weird theme that pops up for this one character.
Yeah, he is like, but it's named after like a Nazi general.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and then he just didn't know that those were characters on Sesame Street.
That's what a weird way to overshadow the thing that you're doing on purpose, to be like, also, this famous, potentially homosexual best friends. Like,
it's very weird.
It adds a very different vibe to some of their interactions that I'm like, watch out for yourself. Okay. Oh, what is this? And then we have the Shmeakfast Club. And we have Trash, who's played by Linnea Quigley, who is a B-horror scream queen. You'd know her from Night of the Demons, Silent Night, Deadly Night, so many things. And she's usually naked, and this is no different. We've got Tina, who's played by Beverly Randolph. Suicide as Mark Venturini, and Spider as Miguel A. Nunez Jr., and both Suicide and Spider appear in Friday the 13th, A New Beginning. Casey is played by Jewel Shepard, who was actually originally offered the role of Trash, but she worked at a strip club at the time and didn't want to take a role where she had to be naked. So instead, Dan O'Bannon worked with her and cast her as Casey. He said that she couldn't play a nice girl because she wasn't a nice girl. And she says, well, I'm a party girl. He says, okay, we'll make you a party girl. And so that's where one of the funny...
And then he was like, how do you feel about wigs?
She goes, I just want a party. And that's her whole character. And you know what? Good for her. Chuck is John Philbin, and Scuzz is unfortunately played by Brian Peck. Yes, that Brian Peck.
Problem Brian Peck.
But so be it. So that's the lineup. Do we want to get into the movie?
Yes.
All right. The movie opens on a frame that says that this is all based on true events, which it of course is. Obviously, this zombie movie. And then we cut to Freddie and Frank at Unita Medical Supply. So Freddie is kind of the young employee, and Frank is his manager, and they are packing up skeletons. And this is where we get this weird random conspiracy theory that doesn't come back the rest of the movie, because Frank goes on a whole rant about how the skeletons all come from India. But, have you ever seen another guy who died with perfect teeth?
Yeah, how do they get all these skeletons with perfect teeth?
It's
a wild...
It's gotta be a skeleton farm.
It's so...
It's so unnecessary and off the wall.
How many alive people do you see? Who are they killing with perfect teeth?
Who's analyzing the teeth? Freddie was so sure. He's like, well, nobody. Do you know?
I don't
know. I don't know how perfect. It's clearly a bunch of, Spirit Halloween skeletons that are lined up.
Oh my god.
There is no weight to anything that is on that shelf. And then we cut to Split Dog.
Oh, yeah.
Split Dog. There is, in this medical supply facility, there is a dog that has been sliced down the middle for display purposes, that you can see all of its organs. And so apparently Frank is saying that they are kind of a big deal. Their special effects person said that if they had all the money in the world, they would have gotten a split Great Dane. But I liked little Split Dog.
No dog is that small.
No dog. What?
Split quote-unquote dog.
Split
no
cat.
Dog is that small.
Split cat-shaped dog.
It is, it's barely a dog. I'm in love with it. It's the greatest prop, but you could have it in your home as a small display piece.
Right.
Dog. As I want to. So deep.
But then Frank takes Freddie over to the freezer where they have a fresh body that's frozen, which is literally just two large hooks on either side of the skull, and it's hanging there. It's the only one that's in there, but apparently they're waiting on another shipment at the end of the week. And so this is a facility where they have all of the bones and body parts if anyone for any medical reasons needs to get some.
Yeah. Looks like that. Sure.
That thing that exists.
And a bunch of crutches and wheelchairs.
Right?
And...
It's just so much random crap down there. I don't know what their day-to-day job actually is. It's very unclear.
It barely looks like a warehouse.
It's not much
of
anything.
Look like anything.
It's shelves. That's what it is. Then we hard cut to the Shmeakfast Club crew just walking down the street. We jump into some rock music, and like we said, this is a group of people who would never hang out together, but nevertheless, they are all deciding where they're going to go to party tonight. And we get such iconic dialogue where Trash rants and goes, I like death. And Chuck, who is kind of, you know what? He's a little bit of a sex pest, actually. I'm going to rewind on the sex pest thing. He's a little sex pesty.
He's a little bit of a sex pest.
In the way that, like, there are real people. He's a little...
Okay, I understand what you're saying.
I don't think he's a bad person, but he is a little bit of a sex pest. You know what I mean? But anyway, he goes, I like death and sex. Do you like sex with death, Casey? And then Casey, of course,
he's
so
after
fuck off
Casey
and
a little
die.
bit.
Yeah, he is after Casey.
But he's not, like, after Casey.
No, he's just hitting on her.
Yeah.
In a sexual way.
Yeah. I don't know.
I don't find him to be a bad guy, but I also...
They're still friends hanging out in this group, though.
Right.
Although, if any of them are friends, the whole thing is baffling.
The whole thing
How
is
did
wild.
anybody get there?
But anyway, we're here, they're all yapping and walking down the street, and it comes out that Tina, who's Freddie's girlfriend, is supposed to meet him after work, and so, despite them not deciding where to party, they all decide to just all go together and pick up Freddie after work.
Yeah.
Which, in my opinion, doesn't sound like a fun day with friends, but so be it.
Any sense. Although, I don't think Tina has a car.
I do
apparently.
No one has a car. It becomes important.
Except my man.
Except my man's suicide. Cut back to Freddie and Frank in Frank's office, and this is where we get a whole lot of exposition, and Frank, in the creepiest way, just shares that Night of the Living Dead is actually based on truth, and so the whole movie was, the details were switched up, but this is a real thing that happened, and that a chemical spill leaked in real life onto some bodies in Pennsylvania, and all the bodies came to life, and so the army shipped out all these contaminated bodies, but in a, and I quote, typical army fuck-up, they all went to, you need a medical supply instead. It makes me think of the title card, how they said that this is a real movie, too.
Oh my god, yeah.
It's like a real movie based on real events inside a movie based on real events.
Yes, absolutely. The way they get around being able to use Night of the Living Dead as a reference point to things, but then also just disregarding what they don't want to use from Night of the Living Dead
right.
by being like, it was based on a true story, but they had to change. Perfect,
oh yeah, they
excellent.
change out all the rules, but it's just their way of saying, hey, we already know that zombies exist, so we don't have to convince anyone that zombies exist.
Yeah, we don't have to be like, oh, it's the dead.
Are you
the
sick?
Dead body things.
Yeah,
come up with different names for them or whatever.
Right? They're the walkers, they're the rottens, they're the
whatever.
They're zombies.
It's a zombie.
They're zombies, and we say the word, which I appreciate. And then we get this, Frank has a whole conversation on the phone with his wife, and we establish that he's such a nice husband, and you don't think Frank's a nice husband?
I don't think he's not a nice husband.
I think it comes up later. I think he feels...
Yeah, you're
It
right.
makes his death sadder.
Yeah, the death is sad.
The death is sad. Anyway, P.S. Frank dies. Then
P.S. Everybody dies. Everybody in the movie
dies.
dies.
Everyone in the movie dies. And so we get the wildest delivery where he makes this really weird face after his phone conversation and jumps back into the zombie thing with Freddy and he goes, wanna see him?
Yeah, I do.
The corpses.
And he just sticks his tongue out like a death count. God, he is a treasure.
God bless him.
Every acting choice of his I think he's extremely funny.
I think everyone in this movie is extremely funny, even the people who aren't, but are such bad actors that they ended up funny anyway.
Yes.
Which we get a lot of that, and sometimes it's the same people.
Yeah, that is true.
But I love it nevertheless. So they head down to the basement where there is this tub, and this is the tub that came from the army, and there's an emergency phone call number on it, and he insists that these things don't leak, and so they punch it, and of course it instantly starts leaking gas. Insert the credit song. And the credit song fucking slaps.
Every song.
Either da-na-na-na-na-na,
Yeah, it hits. And the barrels, of course, you could not have more of a toxic waste disposal barrel if you tried. It is like...
with a little window so that you can see what's inside,
It's a green gack slime barrel, practically.
Yes.
I mean, they're not green, but it's like, they're stereotypical in the way that they look dangerous and unstable. God, yeah, but the music and everything about the title sequence is excellent. I think that all of the shots in it...
Yes. So the shots in the title sequence, we just stay on the face that's in the tub, and it starts to melt off as the gas is released. And this is what becomes the tar man later on. And then the pipes in the basement lead to the body that's in the freezer up the next floor. And so that body that we saw earlier starts to wake up. When the tar man wakes up, he's played by Alan Troutman, who's from Jim Henson's company.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because it's such excellent puppetry and it's 1985.
Yeah.
Then we cut to a fancy government official's house, which every time I watch this, I forget that we cut to this scene so soon. Because it feels so disembodied from the movie until the end when we finally wrap back around, and I love it.
I love that he has 2 scenes. It's my favorite, like, this dude barely associated.
It is excellent. And so we go up this really long driveway and enter this fancy house, which the set decorators have insisted that they did not decorate. They're like, that's just somebody's terrible taste. Like, they're like, we do not claim that house.
That's so funny.
Which...
It's McMansion.
It's very McMansion. And he comes in and his wife is there, and we immediately establish the fact that he's just this government asshole. This has no bearing on the plot, but it is funny. I was gonna
say, which we, like, don't necessarily need.
No, but it's very funny, because she goes, oh, how was your day? And he goes, the usual crap. What's for dinner? She goes, your favorite lamb chops. I had them for lunch. And that's it. Like, he's just such a dick for no reason. But he makes this fancy phone call with this fancy equipment, and...
His entire closet phone.
Yes. And his wife complains about it, but he insists that the family cannot remove the fancy equipment from the house until they find them. He says, we've been through all this before. They could be anywhere. Ooh. And of course we leave him and we're not going to see him again for like another hour and 15 minutes. Back in the car, everyone is being obnoxious and Suicide is being a surprisingly reasonable guy.
Well, except for trying to choke someone while he's driving.
Well, okay.
He's not a reasonable guy.
Oh.
I'm not saying that he's not excellent, but I do think he's maybe got some emotional, psychological issues to work through.
That's fair. They're also shitty to him.
He also punched all the windows out of his car.
He did.
There's many things.
They're shitty to him though, because he's asking. They're all yapping in the backseat, and he says, "Why do you guys only come around when you need a ride someplace?"
Right?
And all Spider gives him is, "Because you're one spooky motherfucker."
Spooky motherfucker.
I'm like, all right. But they
How
roll
old is he though? I think
the
about
age
this
of
every
everyone,
time.
I don't know if they're supposed to be implied high schoolers, because they all just seem like vague late 20s to early 30s burnouts.
They look like, I mean, once again, the Shmeakfast Club, they look like they're all meant to be high school stereotypes.
And
like
yet,
Chuck is a nerd.
But there's no references to anything that feels like high school either. There's this weird in-between.
And they don't talk about it with Freddy, like he doesn't say anything to him about that.
No, he's got this real
Suicide
grown-up job.
Suicide is noticeably older than the rest of them.
Well, and he's also
older.
Like massively tall.
Oh
in
yeah,
the scene when Linnea Quigley is grinding on him.
Okay, but Linnea Quigley is like,
you take this
90
woman who's
pounds
like
soaking wet
5
too.
feet tall, and this guy who's like 6.5 feet tall, and you put them together, and it just looks crazy.
Yeah. It's like Shaq standing next to Kevin Hart. It's crazy looking.
100%. So the Shmeakfast Club rolls up to the medical supply place, but Freddy's not outside yet, and Suicide doesn't want to burn gas and drive around, so instead they go to the conveniently placed cemetery across the street, and this is when Casey is starting to whine, and we get the, I just want to party, which I
should make that my text tone. Yeah. Like, it really, truly...
Back at the medical supply, Frank and Freddy wake up from inhaling the chemical, because once they breathed it, they all passed out. And they are already not looking good. And every shot from now till the end of the movie, Frank's sweat stains are in a different location.
Yeah, it's untenable.
It's fully soaked through his shirt sometimes.
Continuity is not... I don't know who had the job on the set, but...
I feel like... no one?
If there was someone who was directing that, they were doing whatever everybody was doing in the 80s instead of paying attention to making their movie.
Right. Just lots of snow.
Yeah.
It's just all the cocaine. So they get up and they start looking around, and the body that was in the bucket is gone. And they say it melted when it hit the air. And this is when they start retching and vomiting for like a whole scene.
It's not as bad as it could be, which is wild for me to say.
Yeah, you've got issues with vomit.
I do not like seeing people vomit. I don't like people...
More than the average person.
Yes, yeah. To like a 2A phobia degree in ways. It's not horrendous. It's definitely one of those...
It's comedic.
It's a look-away earplug moment, but you definitely... Maybe it's because I've seen the movie like 90
I think
times.
you're desensitized to it in this movie. And so they limp upstairs to the main storage, and Frank sprays a whole bunch of Lysol to get rid of the smell.
Yeah. He's like,
So they had to get permission from Lysol to use Lysol in the movie.
Why the hell didn't they just use a can of air freshener?
But Lysol was so on board because they appreciated that the implication was that Lysol could kill all strong odors, including, like, death.
Oh my god.
Which, what a weird piece of marketing, but I guess it was portrayed in a positive way.
Yeah?
Which, they specifically asked Lysol, which I find funny because every time I watch it, I find it weird that they chose to spray Lysol, I guess, although, to be fair, moments ago, I took the fabric freshener that is only for fabric, and I sprayed everything in this room because every time that you come over, my cat shits in the litter box and stinks us out.
I don't understand it.
Every time, I don't know what it is.
He doesn't hate me.
He likes you. He comes out to greet you, he gives you cuddles, and then he shits.
I know.
I think maybe it's because we opened the window and then he got to visit the window.
It's baffling.
I don't know. But when in desperate need, you do grab whatever's near you because that was not designed for that purpose.
And I guess
I can't judge the Lysol. I just
a sanitizer makes more sense than an air freshener if you're in a medical supply company, I guess.
That
if we're
makes
giving
sense.
some sort of extra credence to this theory.
So they're up there, and after spraying the Lysol, they start hearing the barking of a dog. And Split Dog is on the ground.
Split Dog's alive!
Split Dog's alive! And in the same shot, I love this. There's this board that they've pinned butterflies to, like a display board, and all the wings start flapping in the room, which is awesome. Now, I swear, in the version that we saw in the public screening, they beat Split Dog to death. In the version I saw today, I feel like we never went back to Split Dog. And I don't know why, and maybe I was typing, maybe I looked away. I don't know if that's a real thing and if different cuts have it. But I believe that, I mean, in the one when we saw the live screening, they beat Split Dog to death.
I've always seen them beat Split Dog to death.
Maybe I was just distracted.
I have to go back and look.
I'd have to go back and look. Anyway, they beat Split Dog to death because they're freaked out because Split Dog's not supposed to be alive. It is a little bit sad.
I'm a little sad, but Split
As a
Dog's
concept,
barely a dog.
Split Dog doesn't exist. Split Dog doesn't know it exists, you know? And then the body in the fridge starts yelling and pounding on the door. And so they lock the freezers and go into the office. Now, in the office above them, there's this vision test, you know, with the letters that are big and they get smaller and smaller. Do you remember what it says?
It's Bert is a slave driver and is cheap or something like that.
Yes, and a cheap son of a bitch who's going bald too. Ha ha. Spelled out H-A-H-A.
I did remember. I remembered the Bert is a slave driver part.
It's
but
so good. Well, and the funny thing is that there's a vision test in the other room. That's a regular vision test. And in this room, it is a handwritten vision test.
I swear to God, the one in the main warehouse says something too.
Does it? I tried looking at it today and I couldn't read it. I'll have to double check it.
Because it's next to, there's like nudie art all over the place in the whole warehouse too, which is comical.
And different pinup art in the crematorium that we'll get to.
Yes.
But while they're in the office, they are yelling this entire scene at full volume at each other. And this is one of those that, is it a good acting choice?
Yes.
No. Is it good for the movie? Yes.
I think it's a good acting choice. I don't know. I don't know if they can act normal.
I don't think that they said a single sentence the way I've ever heard a person say a sentence in that scene.
You want to see the corpses?
The corpses in the basement. Oh, God. So they're just screaming at each other in this whole scene, and they're trying to come up with a plan, but Frank tries to pull himself together, and he decides to call the boss, Bert. We cut back to Trash and Spider, who are yapping together, and this is when she is all horny over death.
Yeah.
Saying, do you ever fantasize about being killed? Do you ever wonder about all the different ways of dying? Or, like, what would be the most horrible way to die? And she says that the most horrible way would be for a bunch of old men to eat her alive. And she is fully getting off on this. She's touching herself the whole time. Which, honestly, not even...
touching herself is a
No. Okay, let me explain. She is, like, touching her legs. She's turned on by this. She's not actively masturbating to this conversation.
It's comical the way that everything she does that's sexual is like, I would call barely sexy.
No, it's not. It's her,
like,
you know.
I don't know if I think Linnea Quigley's that hot in this movie, though.
I feel like someone else should weigh in. You know what I mean? I
Something
feel like I need
me.
Straight man who watched this at an influential age to
need
tell me.
that.
The thing is, I don't want to talk to them. Period.
Actually.
I don't want to hear from them. But, something I saw in an interview was that Dan O'Bannon didn't think that women would like this movie at all. He thought it was only going to be popular with, teenage boys, and that's why there's all this nudity. He's like, if I knew it would be popular, I would have had Tom get naked, too. And I'm like, give me the naked Freddy cut. Give it to me now.
I want to see shirtless Freddy cut, too.
Not because I even want him to be naked, but because
I feel like we deserve
equal opportunity nudity.
I mean, I'm going to retract my statement about Linnea Quigley's breasts. Her titties are really nice.
Her titties are
really nice. I guess I just...
Excellent.
The dancing, I do not think...
Yeah.
The dancing is not sexy.
It's so campy.
The weird, the bodies.
And that's when they all decide to light up the... I don't know, what is it?
Road
it's not
flares.
even... Right, with road flares, but what she stands on in the cemetery, what's the word? It's not a mausoleum, it's like
a crypt.
Yes, she's standing on the crypt, performing and stripping, and my favorite part, I don't know.
It's like an above ground... I'm trying to remember,
There's a big... No, you're good.
Because there is a word
plot. I know, and I tried
looking it up. It's an above ground coffin, kind of.
Yes, the big stone thing above ground, it looks kind of like an altar. And she is standing on it, and everyone's lighting her up with road flares, which, by the way, if my friends started stripping and just dancing for me, I don't know if I'd light them up, if half the people in the room were like, hey, put your clothes on.
Okay, but they yell, trash is taking off
her clothes again.
And so this is obviously...
They say, let's get some light over here. Well, I think Chuck yells that, the sex pest.
Yes, okay, but is it sex pest if it's a performance?
First of all, it's very consensual. She's asking for an audience.
Almost too, yes.
It's unconsensual for the audience for the most part.
Poor suicide.
For poor suicide, man. But my favorite part is so she's up there and she's starting to strip, and that the front patch, the crotch patch of her shorts is a tearaway patch. But then she has to sit down and take off the rest of the shorts normally. Like, they're not tearaway shorts, it's just a tearaway crotch.
They're like reverse chaps, they're like reverse assless chaps.
Yes, yeah, they kind of are. But they button, I guess?
I don't know. I've not made a pair where you can do that yet, but...
No, I mean, what would be the opportunity?
I don't know. A cosplay competition. I've already stated that next time I will just
get your tits
rip
out.
my whole shirt off if that means I'm gonna win against Elvira. I'm looking at you. You know who you are.
Which is such an excellent cosplay. It was just a Return of the Living Dead themed
It's too good.
It's so good. It's hard when some of your friends are so talented that they're just like on another level, and I'm like, man.
And I don't have boobs like that. I do. I have Linnea Quigley boobs.
Simple folks, like sometimes you gotta vote for tits.
Sometimes you do.
Sometimes you vote for tits.
Yeah. So it's fine.
This is one of our favorite fun facts, I think. So when they were shooting Trash's gravestone dance, she was initially completely naked, and she was showing pubic hair, and which was normal in the 80s. I mean, there is bush in the 80s, for sure.
Yeah,
but the producer visited the shoot that day, and he threw a fit, and he said that you can't show pubic hair on TV. So first, the director sends Linnea away and has her completely shave. And she says that this is the worst part of the shoot. She's like, that was more embarrassing than anything they could have done. They made me shave my bush for this movie. But then they did another shoot, and then the producer came back, and he said, oh my god, it's even worse. You can see everything.
He's like, oh no,
labias
look like that.
Oh no, there's folds.
Oh no.
And so then they sent her to the special effects team, and they made a crotch piece. And then so in this whole movie, she has Barbie crotch. Like, you see everything. Like, it is full frontal nudity, but it's so smooth. Like, there's nothing there. It's just nude color. It is Barbie.
I mean, you've heard of a merkin, right?
Yes.
It's a reverse merkin. It's a merkin for being smooth.
It is.
Instead of a merkin for putting on hair.
Oh my gosh, it really is.
It's horrible. I feel so bad for her. Every time I laugh so hard now, though, I have to point it out to people and be like, yeah, I mean, look, she's like, it's smooth like a Ken doll.
Barbie crotch. So, back at the medical factory, Bert has now arrived, and he is reaming Frank for causing this disaster, but they're trying to come up with a plan, and they opt to destroy all the evidence and shut the fuck up about it. So, they review the zombie rules that they're familiar with from Night of the Living Dead, and they say, oh, well, don't you just have to destroy the brain? Great. Here's the plan. We're going to open the fridge, we're going to destroy the brain, and out comes the worst zombie I have ever seen on film in my entire life. And I love it so much. It's just a rubbery-looking yellow man.
I have to disagree based
on
the
fact... A guy got
fact,
fired over this.
Based on the fact that the makeup is just as well applied to him as several of the up-close zombies in Dawn of the Dead.
I agree. He has a very big scene, though. He is the first zombie we see him up close.
I love him.
And I love him. He also isn't good makeup. I love both of these things are true.
So odd. Yeah, it's a weird choice for zombie color and like...
He's just a dude.
I don't know if maybe they thought the color grading of it was gonna make it so he didn't look dead enough.
It's
and
so
they chose
confusing.
Like, why is he not? Because later when Trash is dead, and when
Trash is like almost completely white.
And when everybody dies, they're almost completely
white. Well, and if you wanted to have that better preserved look, I think that the close to death Freddy and Frank looks are excellent. Yeah. That makeup gets really good. It's somebody else doing it though.
Yeah, somebody was just like yellow paint.
Yep, so, but the zombie, he runs past Frank and goes to eat Bert, because P.S., Frank is actually already dead, and...
I didn't think about that!
Frank is already dead, and he doesn't know it yet, so the zombie doesn't go to eat him, but he does go to eat Bert, and Bert hits the brain with a fire pickaxe, and, like, straight into the ground. Picture the zombie laying down, face down on the ground, with a pickaxe in his head.
Pins him. It looks pretty good, too.
It's pretty good.
It's kind of rubbery, but it looks like...
It's pretty good. So, but the zombie is still alive. So he gets to the bone saw, and they saw off the head while holding the body, and the body starts running around headless and knocking stuff over, and he's very much still alive. It's very much so giving chicken with his head cut off.
Yeah, they're yelling, they're like freaking out, yelling over each other. It's so funny. Like, it's so slapstick.
It's an excellent scene. Well, and picture, the body is running around, but his hands are in, like, I surrender position the whole time.
God.
Like, his hands are just up, and he's jiggling around.
It's visibly taller because they had the
actual
taller.
head is in there. So, Bill Munns is the original effects artist, and he was famously fired after this scene because of how bad it looks, but also because of some technical issues regarding the pickaxe effect, because when he had designed it, it was designed to be at an angle that didn't work with the angle that they were planning on filming, so the whole thing would be in plain view, and they couldn't do whatever the plan was for the pickaxe. So that was actually, everyone says that it's just for the yellow zombie, but according to the guy who took over, they say it's also got to do with some of these other details.
Yeah, it makes sense.
So then they hired Kenny Myers, and Kenny Myers adjusted the existing effects, which include some significant updates to the Tar Man. The Tar Man was started by the first guy, but then really fixed up by the second guy. Yeah. But he does really defend the original artist, and so he cites that there was a lot of pressure from production regarding changing budgets. However, Munns, the original artist, did not work in special effects again until 2019.
What the hell did he do in 2019?
Just some random movie. I don't know.
Where was he in between? Teaching high school physical education?
Maybe he did do stuff, but as far as like movie credits, he has not a single credit between Return of the Living Dead and 2019, which is devastating. I feel like because he had done a bunch in the 80s. Not like a bunch, but like clearly his career was just starting, and then he got very loudly fired, and that's a shame. Funny. So I think maybe that's why Kenny Myers defends him, because, you know...
Because it sucks that...
Why be a hater?
Cut him short, yeah.
Why be a hater? So then they have this whole yelling situation. They're like, I thought if you said if we destroyed the brain, it would die. And then one of them says, we worked in the movie. And Freddy just goes, you mean the movie lied? But so earnestly.
The movie? You mean someone put something on the internet that wasn't true.
Right? I love him with my whole soul.
I know, Freddie
has my heart, and I'm not in love with him, I just love him.
I know, I'm gonna say it, he's a himbo.
Oh, he's such a himbo.
I think that the word is overused now, but
he is a himbo.
He's got the golden retriever energy.
Oh, yeah.
He even really in the scene, isn't an issue.
Right. Well, even in the scene at the beginning, when Frank is describing Night of the Living Dead to him, and he's like, do you know it was real? Freddy's sitting there, mouth agape, and he goes, no way.
He's so gullible. This whole movie could have been a prank against Freddy.
It really could have been, and he would have fallen for it, too. But he gets really sad later, and that's why it matters.
Works so well.
It's so good. He's perfect for this. So as they're dealing with the fact that it didn't die, Bert checks the window and sees that Ernie across the street in the crematorium is definitely there because he works some late nights. So they decide to bring the body over and see if he'll burn the body. They're like, how are we going to bring it over? How are we going to get the body there? And we get this slow zoom on Bert's face, and he just goes, give me the bone saw. Which is so good. Now, this is the point, just costumes-wise, that they put on, that Freddy puts on his iconic jacket and moves over. All right, you want to yap about the jacket?
I want to yap about the jacket in the fact that legend has it...
From the mouth of the director. It's in the director's commentary.
Okay. Legend has it, even from the mouth of the director. I have not seen proof. I have never seen
proof. If you have proof, my God, please send it to us, because we have looked everywhere.
I've looked everywhere for photos of... So, the jacket he has says, fuck you on it.
It's a great jacket. It's a bomber.
Yeah,
it's sick.
It's a gorgeous, embroidered bomber jacket.
I love it.
It says, fuck you on the back. And legend has it, because this film, they did have, actual alternate filmed scenes for TV, which was, pretty common when basic cable had TV stations that would play things. Right. I think this was, a big on TBS.
Yeah, this one played a lot, and it's a much shorter movie because none of the trash scenes are in it because she's naked the whole movie.
I've heard that they played it pixelated.
For
sometimes.
real?
Yeah.
I've heard that there might be some scenes cut, probably the dancing.
Yeah, which is not
necessary at all.
I mean, it's necessary
just fun.
But good.
It's not necessary in the way that this movie isn't necessary, but it is fun.
But so the jacket, they say that there was a version that Costumes made that said television version on the back of it, just because they didn't want to embroider anything else, or it's so petty. It's a weird, petty detail if it is true.
Well, and the problem is also, we have personal vested interest because I wanted that jacket so badly, and I loved the jacket, and I was like, but it's gotta be the TV version one because we love this movie and we love a deep cut. And so we couldn't find any pictures, and then Cas made one, and it's excellent, and I wear it when we go out, and then I think it confuses people more. It does. When we complain that people don't recognize us, I fear that this is part of it.
I know. They'll look at it and be like...
They're like, oh, that's not the jacket. And I'm like,
it is the jacket.
You don't know. You don't know. Which is just us being pretentious for no reason. That's on us a little bit.
Fake fan on people who saw the movie 20 years before I did.
Right.
But, I wish that I had an embroidery machine so I could redo it. But
we love the jacket, but that's the drama with the jacket. So this is the point when he puts it on, and for the rest of the movie that we see him, he will have that sick-ass bomber on. Back at the cemetery, Trash is still 100% naked, and people are literally telling her to get dressed, and she's not doing it. And so she approaches Suicide, and she's literally, humping his leg naked while he's complaining. He's like, nobody understands me, and she's literally bumping and grinding on him, and he's pushing her off, and he goes, show some fucking respect for the dead, will ya?
It's like she's just a pest. It is just, she's just
you know
annoyance.
What? There is the sex pest. Trash is our sex pest in this movie.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
It's a lot, because most, no one's asking for it. No one's asked for this.
And they all seem pretty fine with the nudity,
when they're not being touched.
But don't, grind against...
Don't bump and grind against Suicide. No. Also, he has so many chains on his pants that it would hurt. Like, but
No.
she's leaving a gap, you know. But I feel like
I know she is barely touching him.
She's
That
not
is true.
actually making contact. She's more just like floating over his
So
leg,
weird.
which I think is just a safety precaution for the
Wonderful.
fact that like nice hardware, Ace. Like
Oh
he's
my
got a lot on.
God.
Oh man,
I want chain that goes from my ear to my lip. Like,
it's so
level of-
good. It makes me think that people who had no experience with seeing counterculture and punk culture decided what the craziest piercings they could come up with. Because I've never seen that.
I've seen.
Like, and it's like a chunky, heavy-duty chain. Like, I've seen
It's dramatic.
I've seen lighter weight chains. You know what? And if it exists, show me. Because that
I've
sounds sick as fuck.
I've seen.
It looks great.
I've seen nose to ear.
Yes.
But
the lip to ear.
the lip seems.
It's a lot of floppy.
Yeah.
You know?
And it is like a very dramatic chain. But I'd fucking do it. I mean, obviously I don't have any facial piercings, so it would be hard. But.
It would be heavy. Well, I mean, he would have had to heal it with something else, but that's neither here nor there. He probably pierced it with a sewing needle in the back of his shitty car.
We don't know his lore.
I don't know his lore. Maybe he appreciates a healthy piercing environment.
I feel like he's got so many layers, it's possible.
I would watch a whole movie of just suicide.
I got a suicide
He's got nuance.
prequel of him.
He's got nuance. So anyway, at the funeral home, we cut to Ernie, who's the mortician, and he has German nationalist music in his headphones. He is smoking a pipe while doing an autopsy. We've got an Eva Braun pinup on his bulletin board. I mean, there are a lot of Nazi implications for him throughout the movie, and Dan O'Bannon, the director, said that he was meant to be a Nazi who was hiding out in the U.S.
Yep.
And you can feel that. Weirdly, they do not use it to make moral decisions about who the character is.
No, he's like, it's one of those things.
It feels bad to say it, but he's kind of one of the nicest guys in the movie for most of it. Like, I mean, he's jumpy, he's a little fast. Even Bert calls him out, he's like, oh, quick on the draw.
He's
like,
got a Nazi gun,
He's got a Nazi gun, and he has it out a lot. But for the most part, he's also, like, a loyal friend.
It's very odd.
It's an odd choice. It's a choice that is not necessary and does not make sense, but it does not add to nor take away from the movie. It's just a quirk about it. It's just a little entertaining, you know? So Bert walks in, and like I said, a little quick on the draw, Ernie pulls a gun on him, and then Ernie gives us a detailed description on how rigor mortis works as he's working on the corpse. And so this is all foreshadowing for what's to come later. So he explains how it starts in the brain, it moves to the body, then it moves to the limbs, and you can kind of work it out by bending the limbs and breaking through the rigor mortis. Bert is there so that he can get a favor from Ernie. Of course, they want to get the body burnt, so he lets Frank and Freddie in, and Ernie is pissed.
This scene is one of my absolute, it's my favorite.
Is it really?
It's not my favorite, but I love it so much.
You're allowed to have so many favorites.
I love the weasels.
The weasels are crazy.
I love the idea, and I know you're about to say it, but then he comes in, they've got bags full of wriggling something.
Something's in there.
And they're like, we need you to burn these. And he's like, God, what's in these bags? And the answer is rabid weasels. We got a shipment of weasels. First of all, why live weasels?
Why?
They're not a pet. And they even
He's like, you're not a pet store. Why don't you call the pound? Why do I have to burn them? This is crazy. And so on screen, these are actually the rabid weasels that are brought in are actually bags of toy monkeys. Motorized toy monkeys that the symbols were removed. That's what was used on set.
I didn't know that.
Which is such a weird choice.
I guess.
Why did they have access to so many symbol monkey toys?
I guess I had always kind of figured. I don't know what I figured.
You knew it had to be something.
That there was like.
I don't know why I figured it was puppeted.
I know. I kind of figured that there was like someone sort of with a big stick wiggling things around in there from off camera. Right. I don't know.
Now, I unfortunately have to call out. So as Ernie is getting the information on the weasels, he says a line that is particularly unfortunate given the weird theming for his character. And so he says, you want to burn them? That's cruel. You can't just burn animals alive. It's too hideous. At least let me kill them first. Which is unfortunate context for a Nazi. That said, they swear Ernie to secrecy and they decide to tell him what's going on.
Yeah.
So they open a bag and there is a whole very yellow arm that's in there, and it jumps across the floor.
It's awesome.
It leaps across the floor and grabs Ernie's pants and rips off, like, one leg, but perfectly. Like, he had a cutaway calf.
Yeah.
You know, like those cargo pants that turn into shorts that Boy Scouts wear?
Yes.
That's what he had to have
Zip-off
been
shorts.
in.
Yeah,
Perfect zip-off shorts.
It's very good. It's a very good piece of puppetry they do with this stupid arm, too.
Oh,
and also, how do you get
excellent.
leverage to pull something when you're just an arm?
No, there's jumps.
There's nothing.
There's no context, but it's perfect. It's exactly what it should be. Back at the graveyard, Chuck is trying to hook up with Casey, but it's pretty inconsequential. He's just hitting on her, and she yells at him to go choke a chicken. But fun fact, they took 45 takes of that because the actress playing Casey, Jewel, didn't know the expression go choke a chicken. So apparently, and no one, I don't know why someone didn't just stop after a couple of takes and be like, hey, it means, like, go jerk off. Like,
yeah, it's even
someone
like,
could have helped her out instead of
like
making her
fuck
do.
off. Like,
Right. It's specifically fuck off, but, like, also go jerk off. Go
like,
be your own problem. Go
you
choke
horny,
chicken,
yeah,
you know?
horny little fuck. Yeah,
exactly.
Really...
Go take care of yourself because I'm not going to do it for you. But instead they put that poor actress through 45 takes.
Oh my god, what do you
of
even
that
do
stupid
for
scene.
45 takes? She's not even
go choke
good after
a chicken.
45
Go
takes.
choke a chicken. Go choke a chicken? Like, poor girl.
That's wild.
I feel bad for her. So, back at the crematorium, Bert, Ernie, Freddie, and Frank are all over there, and Ernie decides to help in exchange for a big favor from Bert. Obviously, this will wrap back around later. Bert and Ernie are loading up the crematory, and Freddie and Frank are looking on, and they look so bad. This is when they start to really...
I really do like the effect.
The progression is good over the course of the movie. They are wet and sweaty and pale and looking... It's just gross, and their eyes, the eye bags are getting really dark. And Bert is bitching about it. He's like, I can operate that goddamn thing myself, which comes back. That's thematic. But while the body burns, the building's exhaust releases zombie gases into the surrounding air, and the theme song drops. This is how we're like, all right, we're moving into Act 2 of this movie now.
We're moving into the best thing we could Oh, God, I just love it.
It's so good.
Do you wanna party?
Well, this isn't Do You Want to Party Yet. This is the theme song again.
No, it's the dun 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 dun. Yes.
Dun, 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 dun. So when this music drops and we get that epic theme song, this is where you're like, okay, we're moving into Act 2.
Yes,
We're 37
because-
minutes into the movie. The acts are almost perfectly split up over the course of the movie. Things are picking up. So outside, it starts to acid rain. The Shmeakfast Club runs back to the car for shelter, and Tina runs towards the medical supply to find Freddie. And this is where everyone's like, roll up the windows. And
Yeah.
Suicide's like, I busted them out, man. Like, all right, Suicide.
Suicide,
Even though he's still bitching that everyone wants to use his car, and he's like, treat it nicely. But
yeah, and it's got Suicide spray painted across the side.
it is fully tagged.
I love it.
It's everything I want.
I wish I had a cool
love
enough
it.
nickname to spray paint it across the front of my car.
Right. So we go back to Ernie, who's looking out the window, and he speaks German, but what he says is, it's coming down like a drunk soldier out there, is the German sentence that he's saying.
I have never looked that up.
I looked it up this time. I've never looked it up before, and it's just more Nazisms, as if just speaking German wasn't enough. But everything's burnt up. We're like, great, Ernie got the job done. We're in good shape. But Freddie and Frank look like absolute death at this point. It is bad. And so this is when they tell Bert that they breathed in the gas and then they passed out, and Frank runs away to go vomit, and they all decide, oh my gosh, we got to get these guys to a hospital. And this is a point that I'm always surprised that they actually call. Like, after everything that just happened, it doesn't feel like they would call, but they do. They take care of them. They, help them out and get them back to the embalming room, and Ernie calls an ambulance about a poisoning.
I guess what else do you do, though? It's a
Maybe
little
drive
odd.
them to the hospital, but to invite them there.
Yeah, it's a little weird that they don't try to drive them to the
I
hospital.
do think that Ernie looks outside, and he's like, oh, well, we can't drive in that. Like, it's...
Because the rain's
Because it's
coming
pouring.
down? Oh, maybe.
It's pouring bad. But it's still, they're good. They call. They're trying to get him hooked up. And then outside, Suicide's car won't start in the cemetery, and so we get this super slowed down point of view footage with weird music beneath it, and this is when the bodies outside begin to climb out of the dirt. Back at the medical supply, Tina finds Freddy's hat, so she knows that he was there, but remember, he's already changed locations. He's across the street at the crematorium. So she goes into the basement and she's looking for him, and this is when we see the Tar Man. Oh. God bless. And the Tar Man is yelling brains. And this is, like we said, this is the first time that we've established that zombies want brains in all of zombie lore, and it is epic. And so she falls through the stairs and she gets stuck. Like, her torso is above the stairs, her legs are below, she's gonna fall, the Tar Man's chasing her. Unfortunately, this was done without the actress's knowledge. While she was on break, they changed out one of the stairs.
What?
While she was on break, they changed out one of the stairs for a false step. And then they told her that she needed to do a test run of the stairs, and of course she falls through and gets really banged up. Now, I don't know if that's the shot that they actually ended up using, because I feel like for a test, I don't know if the Tar Man would have been in it, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the exact piece that they used.
So it wasn't a purposeful bait and switch on her?
I don't
it's just
know.
That they didn't... Yeah.
There's not enough information out there to know for sure. I don't like that, but it is true. And so when you watch it now, you know. And that would freak me out too, man. To step on a stair and fall through when you're running. Ugh.
Yeah, no.
But because the punks, the Shmeakfast Club, can't get anywhere with their car, they decide to try to follow Tina to find Freddy, so they all run towards the medical supply building. Tina, in the meantime, is still in active battle with the Tar Man, and she locks herself in a supply closet. And the Tar Man is smart.
It's awesome, yeah.
These are smart zombies. And for reference, when you're picturing this, it doesn't look the same as any of the other zombies in the movie. The Tar Man looks so cool. It's really tall and lanky and gooey. And the face is really expressive.
It's almost like he climbed out of a big swampy goo.
Yeah.
I mean, he's very gooey, and... It's funny
very aptly named.
We saw, like, at the beginning that, like, the face totally melted off of him, and then it comes back and...
Maybe it's just new goop, you know?
It is, it's re-gooped.
It's unidentified goop.
And he also, like several of the zombies in this movie, inexplicably has eyes fully intact inside his skull.
I love that, though.
No, I do.
It makes them really expressive and interesting to look at.
Freaky.
For some reason, all the zombies, now mind you, when we have a lot of extras, like those, they look a lot more human than the others. But all of the really grody zombies still have full eyeballs, but like no eyelids or anything, so it's perfectly round. It looks awesome.
Yeah.
So anyway, the Tar Man, who looks like all of those things and looks epic, he's super smart, so he chains the front of the supply closet that Tina's locked herself into for leverage, and he begins to pry the doors open, despite them being locked from the inside. So Suicide runs down the stairs, and he sees what's going on, and he runs down to rescue Tina, and the Tar Man takes a massive bite directly into his head. And you think that he's gonna live longer than this, based off of...
No, I know.
There's people you know way less, and he's one of the more interesting people in the group, and then he just gets bit. It's very much so like, is it cake? Like, his head caves.
Yeah, it's... The strength of the zombies is quite... I would say very changeable, because there are points in time where they, like, can't break through certain things.
Oh, yeah, we, like, baseball bat the Tar Man's head later, and that's enough to take him down.
Yeah. Or,
like that's how we take him down later.
Or he can't rip the cabinet open, but his jaw strength is enough.
It's just jaw. That's the only strength they have is chomp.
That he can, it's like an alligator.
Oh, man. So Suicide is insta-dead. He drops so fast, and the rest of the crew all runs upstairs. Across the street, the paramedics pull up to the crematorium, and they tend to Freddie and Frank, who look even worse. Yeah. Every time we see them, it's worse. And we see they've got purple lips and white skin and yellow tongues, which I think is a good tie to that very yellow zombie, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what human tongues look like. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if when blood drains from
I haven't seen what a dead human... I feel like they'd look more gray, like dead muscle.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That would make more sense to me. But anyway, It's a cool character design. And they're wrapped up in these blankets, and they've got these big puke buckets. Like, the implication is that they are really not doing so hot. And the paramedics check to see if their stethoscopes are working, because they can't hear anything. And they check more vital signs, and there's no blood pressure and no pulse, and their temperatures are room temperature. Cut back to the punks. They are all freaking out because if they call the cops will kick their asses. But Suicide is super dead, so they have to do something. And for some reason, completely unexplained in the movie, they decide to just run back into the middle of the cemetery in the acid rain, which seems like objectively one of the worst decisions they could make right now.
I don't know what direction.
I rewatched it today, like 4 times, to be like, did I miss a single throwaway line? They just suddenly, it's like they cut for time, decided to cut a couple of lines, because we just cut in the middle of like a breath to everybody running on the street to get back to the cemetery.
I guess that's kind of the only place they have to go is to the mortuary that's there, but
they don't go to the mortuary at the time.
They're trying to get to the mortuary.
But they're in the middle of the cemetery.
They're trying to run to the mortuary, though.
In theory.
Because that's where they end up trying to...
They end up fully deep in it, though. Wouldn't you go past? Because both of the buildings are outside the cemetery. And the cemetery is like in a separate spot across from both of them. Because from the cemetery, you could see Freddy go from one to the other. Because Tina comments on it earlier. Not to be super specific about location.
I know.
But it's way out of the way.
The back of the mortuary is attached to where the cemetery is.
But they're in the medical supply building.
I know. So if they ran...
Through
the graveyard into the mortuary...
Maybe.
I don't know.
Anyway, it's very loosey-goosey.
I would need a map.
I would need a map. In my head, I'm drawing one, and I'm not sure it's right. And frankly, I don't know if there's a logical one to be drawn.
I don't know if they had one, really.
I don't know if they had the budget to consider what a real map would look like, and I don't think that it matters.
No.
But they run all the way back into the cemetery, and in the acid rain, and there's this groovy surf music underneath the whole thing, and this is when we get a skeleton rising from the dirt. And it launches out from the grave, and its jaw drops open, and the eyes pop open, and this is when we get the needle drop of party time.
Yes.
Do you want a party? It's so good. And this is how you know that we're moving into the next segment of the movie. And so all the kids scatter, but Trash sticks around screaming, and everyone tries to run from the cemetery, but all the bodies are crawling up, and Trash literally falls down every single step she takes, and is shortly thereafter overtaken by zombies, ripped apart by old men in what she felt would be the hottest way to die. And so the shot of the skeleton rising out of the grave and opening its jaw actually was a super disappointment to some of the production staff.
What?
And they had assumed it was a work in progress and it wasn't completed. And so Dan O'Bannon...
Because it looks like a
Halloween
looks store puppet?
bad. It looks like the ones that we saw at Fright Fest when they just like launch out of the lake and sit up.
Yes, I love it.
And so the director said, I was so busy being disappointed by other things that I didn't have time to be disappointed with that one. So, of course, it came on, it eventually was one of the key scenes that was used in marketing. It is one of the pictures that people picture when they picture this movie. Also, 45 Grave, the band who released Party Time, they did release a zombie-themed version of the song after the movie came out that references some of the stuff in the movie.
Yeah.
However, unfortunately, the version that's used in the movie, if you actually look up the lyrics, it's a super graphically violent song about the rape and murder of a 5-year-old girl. Party Time. So,
I guess
what the fuck, 45 Grave?
I guess I didn't listen to that
I didn't either.
So
what are we doing?
I've listened to the zombie one, and I've
The
listened
zombie one's pretty sick. I like the zombie one.
The, like, rockabilly, the one that you hear that's, like, the surf music, quote unquote.
Yes,
song by the Cramps.
There is. I've got it in here, too.
Yeah.
And so, this one,
that.
I love that the zombie version released, but I'm also like, guys, why did that song exist? So, I guess, what the fuck, 45 Grave, but also... Without context, it's a really excellent needle drop in this movie. Back at the crematorium, the paramedics break the news to Freddie and Frank that they are technically not alive. Obviously, they're really freaked out by this, but they're reminded, like, hey, you're obviously not dead. You're talking and moving, and dead people don't do that, but you can't be alive either because you have no vital signs, so I guess you're in between right now. And they're all startled by the sound of Spider, Scuzz, and Tina pounding on the door. So Ernie lets them in with his Nazi gun drawn. It's very threatening. And Chuck and Casey end up running the other way back to Unita and run in, pursued by zombies. So now we're split up. We've got Spider, Scuzz, and Tina at the crematorium, and we've got Chuck and Casey at the medical supply.
Who I will forget about.
Yep.
Every single time. Because I do not care.
Do cut away from them for a very, very long time, and then suddenly cut back towards the end. We do not pay a lot of attention to them.
They're pretty much just hanging out for the rest of the movie, to be honest.
So the paramedics hear the screaming of zombies outside, and so they return to the ambulance to head out and figure out what's going on and hopefully, help all the people who are screaming outside. But when they turn on their lights in their vehicle, they are surrounded by zombies, and the zombies open the doors and eat the paramedics. So some of the zombie extras in the movie were actually paid an extra little bonus to eat real calf brains in the film.
Nice.
And the director, Dan O'Bannon, didn't want the actors to do anything he wasn't willing to do, so he also ate some of the brains first in front of them to show them that he wouldn't ask them to do it himself. So,
damn,
you know what?
That's very George Romero of him to be
right?
like, how about some real animal body parts, actually?
Right. And
Except I don't know.
The thing is, it's
George
not even
Romero,
all of them. It's like
just some
the
of them.
specific people. I'm guessing that they picked people for specific shots based on if they were willing to take
yes,
the bonus.
Exactly.
Which makes sense because some of it looks really meaty and gross.
I'd put it in my mouth.
I don't think
if
I would do it.
I don't
think
know if
I would
eat
do it
straight up. Also, I feel like you could cook it a little bit.
Okay, but are you more likely? One thing I remember in like Game of Thrones, right, is when Daenerys has to eat the heart. I think it's in season 1, she has to eat a heart to prove that she's got like valor and honor.
Yeah.
And so she has to eat this whole heart, but the actress had to eat, they made a whole heart out of jelly. It's just jelly and it's huge, like probably more than a jar of jelly's worth of jelly. My question is, would you rather eat meat, like the heart, but it's like body and it's uncooked but safe?
Okay.
Or jelly in that quantity?
Okay. That's a lot of jelly. So, I've eaten cooked hearts.
Yeah, me too. Not the question.
But, like, I know. I don't know.
Unfortunately, that would be an easier guess.
If it was the same size, I would eat a smaller, let's say, quarter size raw heart.
Like a turkey heart kind of a thing?
Yes. Or even a little bit bigger, probably, rather than that much jelly. What flavor jelly is it, though?
Well, it's red, so it's probably like a strawberry.
I could eat that much jelly.
You could?
Yeah.
I think that the jelly would make me sicker than the heart. I think I would be able to get through it easier because there's less of a mental issue.
I feel gross afterwards.
I would be more like
cookies.
And the whole thing was that she wasn't allowed to vomit, and so that's a part of in filming it. She, as an actress, could not vomit either because the character couldn't vomit, and they had to keep the shot rolling.
Yeah, but you could do it and then throw up.
Right, I would.
You know what I mean?
I probably would. Anyway, some of the extras ate real calf brains in this movie. Back at the crematorium, Tina and Spider tell Bert and Ernie about the zombie outbreak, and then back at the medical supply, Casey calls for the police. These are all important things. At the crematorium, Tina is reunited with Freddy, and Ernie decides to patrol outside to see what happened to the paramedics, and he sees a limbless zombie feasting on a paramedic.
Yes!
So he shoots at it, and it pursues him on foot, and I definitely think that there is a cut from a prosthetically applied extra to then, I believe that the implication of the limbless zombies end up playing by someone with dwarfism, but only for like one shot as he's running. Because I don't think it's the same actor who is eating.
I know. I would have to go in and look because the proportionality I think is different. Yeah,
it feels like a distinct cut.
I would have to go
to a different
look back
body
because I know it is someone either. I don't think it's an amputee. I think it is someone with dwarfism.
I think it's definitely someone with dwarfism.
It's an extremely effective. The eating, the paramedic's brain being eaten is
the paramedic's brain looks so good.
Yeah, it's like one of the best.
The way it pours out,
nasty effects.
Like, okay, scanners, give me gross.
No, yeah.
So after being pursued by this limbless zombie, Ernie makes it back to the crematorium and he tells everybody that there are zombies out there. So at this point, everybody's certain of what's going on, and the whole crematorium crew, to the sounds of the Surfin' Dead by the Cramps. This is where we get our Cramps needle drop, which is very fun. It feels very Scooby-Doo, this sequence.
God, it's so, yeah.
Because they run through the building and, like, nail shut all the windows and doors, and so we're running from, like, door to door, as a whole mob.
Yeah.
They did not decide to split up to do this. They all go together. It's very Scooby-Doo, and it's hilarious. And zombies are reaching through all of the windows. Meanwhile, outside, the zombie eating the paramedic hears the radio crackle. And he very gently climbs into the car and grabs the radio, and in a very polite voice goes, "Come in, dispatch. Send more paramedics."
Which is so wild. It's great.
Such a good bit.
I've not seen a zombie movie since, I feel like.
That's done it?
That's done, and it is comedic to the effect that, like, obviously there is no realism in the idea of someone still having functional lungs and vocal cords.
Right.
Like,
but there's also not realism in being a zombie.
Or having
so
eyeballs when you die. Like, yeah. Exactly.
So the crematorium crew, after trying to nail everything shut, they return to the embalming room because it has steel shutters, so it's a safer place to be. Freddie and Frank at this point are fully crying out in pain, and they are laid up on the ground. Scuzz and Spider threatened Bert, into explaining what happened, so he explains the whole chemical spill situation. And Freddie describes what he's going through. Oh. He says that he first got a really fucked up headache, and then his stomach cramped, and now his arms and legs are cramping. And Ernie's ears prick up. He knows what he's hearing.
I know.
It is sad and so obvious.
It's crazy.
So first he checks under his shirt and his back, and he sees massive bruising where Freddie was lying down, and this bruising looks excellent.
It's awesome.
It looks so good.
It's such a cool detail.
It makes me think of, like, we had a friend who had gotten in a really bad car accident in high school, and it's like that same...
It's crazy, though. Yeah.
Like, that's what real massive bruising looks like. And so he's got this bruising from where he's been laying down. And so Ernie's like, oh, that's the blood pooling, and starting in the head and going to the core and going to the limbs, that's rigor mortis setting in. And it is a sad scene.
It's freaky.
That's something I really appreciate about this movie, is that they don't hide from the moments that are sad, because the comedy is so good that, it doesn't have to be super shticky for it to work.
It genuinely, everything about Freddy's death to the end of the movie from this point is, like, genuinely very sad to see.
Well, I mean, Freddy's death is super sad, but also Frank, like, his death is so sad.
It is sad.
So sad. But because we had that really sad scene, the movie immediately counterbalances itself. So outside, as requested by the zombie, another paramedic ambulance pulls up, and the paramedics are immediately swarmed by zombies. And this starts a lovely bit that just keeps giving in this movie. In the crematorium, the zombies have started to break through the barriers set in the building, and one manages to pull Scuzz through and feast on his brain. And it's just like when Suicide was eaten, because it's an is-it-cake head squish moment.
Yeah, it's great.
And I love it. Spider manages to trap the zombie, and the zombie breathes this sigh of relief as she gnaws on brains, and Ernie clocks it, so that's gonna come back later. But they decide to tie up the zombie and bring her back to the embalming room for questioning. She is a really cool puppet.
It is a puppet that, I know the puppet, like, made the guy's career. I can't remember his name.
Well, and it took 3 people to operate it, too.
Yeah, and it was like it's a hugely successful puppet. It's another one that doesn't look like what a dead body would look like.
Right.
But has, like, it's a mummified appearance, and
it's very mummified. And so she's got, the head moves, and it's not like the mouth is moving with all the words, because there aren't lips left to do it, but it still looks very cool. She's got hair still.
She's got breasts, inexplicably.
Yeah, inexplicably. But you know what? It doesn't take away from the cool factor. It doesn't feel campy as much as it looks cool, despite it having breasts. It's kind of odd. But then the arms move, and then the spine, because she's cut off, like, before the hips, and the spine moves on its own, and that's my favorite part.
Yeah.
It's so cool. So Ernie questions her, and she says that she only eats brains. Like, it's not about eating people, it's about eating brains, because the pain of being dead. She says that it hurts to be dead, she can feel herself rot, and the brains make the pain go away. And I have to say, this is one of the saddest post-death concepts.
Oh my god.
This is an overwhelmingly terrifying death concept.
I feel like within the context of it, even though it's like they've been Frosty the Snowman, though. You know what I mean? It's not like...
I need explanation.
It's not like they are dead and once you die, you feel pain. It's just that if you've been reanimated, then you feel pain.
Or are they in pain the whole time and then they're reanimated so now they can seek brains?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I feel it, yeah. I don't
kind
know.
of sad and scary either way.
It is scary and sad
without a lot
way,
of context. I mean, and now some people say that in this scene, when Ernie hears that it hurts to be dead, because he says that out loud to everyone, he goes, "Oh, it hurts to be dead," and he seems kind of shook up. Some people are like, oh, because he's reflecting because of his past in Germany. I'm like, I don't think that. I don't think so.
I think he's just like,
I think he's just horrible. Remarking because it's awful, and I think he's reacting pretty similar to everyone in the room. So, sorry, I don't think that's a deep self-reflection, and it doesn't have to be. I think it's a really killer scene. So then Spider, Bert, and Ernie are deciding to plot on how to kill them, and it's the scene that I feel like, I love this movie, but I feel like this whole scene is so cuttable. They're just standing in the hallway saying, how do we kill them? which is a conversation we've had so many times through this movie. Like, this scene has happened a few times.
And there will be no answer to it.
There will be no answer. And then they decide that they have to be burnt. And the thing is, when we had this scene last time, they decided that they had to be burnt. So I feel like we could have just skipped it. But it's fine. You could have just told Spider that this is what worked last time and called it good. But anyway, outside, a still naked Trash rises from the dead. And she stalks down a person experiencing homelessness, and she's coming down the street with this catwalk strut in the complete
It's so
nude.
wild.
This guy's just going about his night, though. Like, he's not...
It's wild. Okay, he's gonna die anyway. I guess, like, to the extent that, I mean, I feel as bad for him as I feel for everybody else who gets devoured in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
I guess that...
For sure. It's more just, like, everyone else who dies in this movie is, like, there, and then there's just this guy...
Random.
Where did this random street come from? Where did Trash just go?
Where has anybody been in? I know. All of the city pieces of it are wild. And especially because it's supposed to be Louisville, and I'm like... Okay.
I know.
What
it's
a random
so
ass place.
But she kills him. She eats him. She gobbles him up. She launches into his neck, and it's kind of cool. Her jaw, like, completely unhinges.
She's turned into, like, a demon.
Oh,
It is not anything like the
no.
other zombies. It's hilarious.
It's looking much more Night of the Demons than it is Return of the Living Dead. And that's fine.
I don't care.
I love it, nevertheless. Meanwhile, cut to a police dispatcher. And the police dispatcher is reporting that there have been multiple missing paramedic vehicles that have gone to this location and not made it back. So we're gonna send them cops, which goes about as well as you think it will. Back at the medical supply, Casey and Chuck, who we've all but forgotten about at this point, they are breaking down and they're wondering if they're gonna be rescued. And for some reason, Casey just goes, "I never liked you," and she cries onto him. I'm like, girl, we know.
I think
she
that's
never
so
told him that
hilarious.
she did like him. It's not a revelation.
I think that's fucking hilarious.
I think it's funny.
Especially if we are considering that he's been kind of a pain in the ass.
It's a very fun turn of events that in a lot of movies you have the guy who's been persistent and obnoxious, and then the girl he's been persistent with, they get locked somewhere and the world's about to end, and she goes, "No, I do like you," and instead they're like, "No."
I've always loved you.
Instead they're like, "No, Casey really just does not like him, and we're gonna
yeah.
give you that moment," and she's still gonna not like him, which is hilarious. Meanwhile, Bert proposes that they lock up Frank and Freddy before they hurt someone. Clearly they're going to become zombies, and they are very close to the end for themselves. Tina's pretty angry about it, obviously. Her loved one is going to be locked up, but because Spider, one of her friends, agrees, that's enough people that they all decide to move forward with the plan. So they carry the two of them to the chapel and lock them up. And they wail in pain the whole way. Their limbs are, like, crunched up with rigor mortis. They're crying out while they're being carried. It is so sad. But Tina decides that she's going to stay with Freddy and be locked into the chapel with Freddy instead of leaving with everyone else.
Which is...
Famous last words. Like, but this isn't how she dies, but it's also a very bad decision.
Yeah.
But I get it, because he's so conscious at this point, so it's a lot harder.
Is, but he's telling her not to.
He's telling her not to, but...
I don't know.
It's a hard
Tina's
situation.
just obnoxious, and I think I have trouble sympathizing with her sometimes.
The actress is not excellent. And, well, you know, and in most zombie movies, I have a very easy way of saying, like, leave them. But Freddy, there's something just so sad and tragic about him that my heart does go, I don't know.
Yeah.
Stay with him while he dies. Like, it's so sad.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because the paramedics, or because the dispatcher sent in the cops to look after the paramedics who died, a bunch of cops pull up. And just like last time, zombies roll up and swarm them. And another zombie hears the crackling of a radio, grabs it, and says, "Send more cops!" Iconic.
Awesome. It's so good.
It's so iconic. So Bert, Ernie, and Spider are debating their new plan of how we're gonna burn everything, and that didn't work. So Ernie decides, hey, he's got nitric acid. He says it's gonna destroy anything. I have no clue what his plan was with this, because he has a jar with, like, approximately 3 shots of nitric acid.
Maybe he has more around, and this was just his emergency.
But why does he carry it around then? It's like,
know.
This is my jar. Like, it's not a plan to save them. It's a singular weapon that's a single-use weapon.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's silly. But anyway, it's just enough to justify why Ernie's now carrying around a very small jar of nitric acid. Meanwhile, in the chapel, Freddy and Frank are wailing in pain, and Freddy finally seems to pass. Freddy's eyes turn, and then the footage goes slow-mo for a second, and he begins to foam at the mouth, and this is where you know that he's changed. So he begins to chase Tina around, and he's yelling to try to get her brains, and all of the lads return, and they each take turns beating on Freddy, and Freddy jumps up time and again, and Ernie decides to splash him in the face with the acid. I think it's a little wild. I love this movie. I love this movie. But also, Tina does, like, nothing to save herself at any point in this movie.
No, Tina is...
She's just such a damsel in distress.
I know. And people keep, like, picking her up and moving her,
right,
which
Spider
I really think is funny.
He scoops her up in this scene, and he carries her out, and I'm like, she's not even hurt. She's fine. She's just scared and, I guess, useless.
Dumb, yeah.
She's just useless. So they all go back to the embalming room, and Freddy now has awesome acid eyes. They burned out his eyes. He's blinded, and it's so sick. They carry Tina back to the embalming room. Freddy, with his acid eyes, he's still trying to escape the chapel, so they barricade as much as they can before returning back to the embalming room again. There's a series of scenes where they go back and forth between the chapel and the embalming room.
It doesn't need to happen
seemingly
like it does.
instantly. Like, it's so bad, but it's great. But it's bad.
The layout of the funeral home
changes depending on what they need it to
absolutely
do.
Bonkers, yeah.
Clearly they are separate locations.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and I don't mean separate locations like buildings, but clearly they don't care about the actual layout of the theoretical place. During this barricading situation, Ernie gets his foot broken in the shuffle. Which Maybe.
He's been bit by something.
Or he's been bit by something.
And he's just saying that.
It's unclear, and I don't think they give enough to determine that that's the case.
I can't remember exactly what because
he doesn't seem to turn at any point.
Well, he kind of starts to look sick when Half Lady is on the ground. Mm-hmm. I think she grabs him, maybe.
And I have to
double.
But he's saying his foot now. Like, he takes off his shoe, and before it was like his pants.
I know. I wonder. Well, no, the Half Lady, not.
The Half Lady. I was thinking of the yellow arm
because there's no biting from the yellow arm. Yeah, I don't remember. I remember hearing. I don't know. They pointed it out on something I was listening.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm not sure, but he says that his foot is broken in the shuffle. So he's like, I can barely walk. Like, I'm not very helpful yet. But then Freddy escapes the chapel. So Freddy on the loose. Bert goes ahead with Spider outside to try to fight off the zombies and clear a path to the vehicle, because they decided that they've got to try to get out of here one way or another. So Ernie says that he's cashing in his favor, and he tells Bert to watch himself out there. It's sweet.
It's kind of
They're like, oh, that's sweet. You're really good friends. So Bert and Spider actually do make it into the cop car, and they drive towards the building to try to pick up Ernie and Tina at the door, much closer to the car. But they are swarmed with zombies. So even if they didn't peel off, because they're about to peel off, I mean, it was a death trap.
Oh, yeah. And Tina, at that point, she's like, they left us.
Right? It's a death trap. Yeah. So they do leave. Bert peels off, and Spider's upset about it, too. He's like, that's my friend in there. Like, don't make us leave Tina. But Bert's just trying to escape. He's like, I'll get help, but I need us to live right now.
Yeah.
Which is valid. They peel around the block, and there are really zombies everywhere. And they, like, circle back. They, like, go around the block, and they just come back. They're like, screw it. We can't get out of here anyway. So they crash the car into the medical building, and they run inside, and they join Casey and Chuck. Meanwhile, Tina and Ernie climb into the attic of the embalming room while Freddy claws at them from below. And he is just being so zombie manipulative. Like, it's a little Evil Dead, you know?
Cool. It is very Evil Dead. You're right. That is a similar, like, using a psychological technique against somebody as a zombie is very interesting.
I love it. I think it's excellent, and I will never get sick of it. Or actually, hold up. No, we get to this later. I skipped ahead. So she climbs into the attic.
Yes.
And we'll get to the rest later. Meanwhile, here's where we have other sad stuff. Frank decides to take care of himself. Obviously, Freddy's in bad shape. Clearly, Frank is advancing at a slower rate because he seems to have some control over himself.
I feel like he was standing further away from the container.
He may have been. I don't care to explain why, honestly.
I know.
But Frank lights up the crematory, and he removes his wedding ring, and he says his final prayers. He says, forgive me, and he crawls in, and he shuts the door. And you hear him yell as he burns to death. And as he said earlier, he can operate that goddamn thing by himself.
Which is wild, yeah. I don't know how you would shut the door.
No, it's the weirdest choice, because I'm like, you probably don't have to.
But it's also, like,
it's
not how...
preserving other people, I guess.
Yeah, and bodies, like, don't burn like that.
It doesn't matter.
So many things.
So the actor, James Karen, who plays Frank, actually came up with the idea for the death scene himself. Because he was supposed to be transformed into a zombie and join the zombie mob, but he didn't want to film in the cold rain in LA. So instead, he suggested that he incinerate himself before the transformation, and the director agreed. And I think it's brilliant, because it just gives us such a better range of coping and range of emotion. Better. It's just, thank you for the shitty LA rain. Like, thank you for the cold. Thank you for James Karen pussying out. Like... Yeah, thank you. I love it. Then a whole additional fleet of cops arrives outside to check on the situation. They're all swarmed by zombies, and a helicopter arrives overhead.
That's my favorite.
And it announces that there's a police blockade, and any living persons need to go to the perimeter and surrender. That helicopter is voiced by the director.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So inside the medical facility, Bert overhears this, from outside, and he decides he has to call and let somebody know what's going on. Someone has to know that they're in the building. Back in the embalming room then, Freddy is speaking to Tina through the floorboards, and this is where we get that Evil Dead style emotional manipulation that I love. And he's going, I forgive you, darling. I know you're up there because I can smell your brains. And he's like trying to speak gently, but the zombie voice keeps taking over.
Yeah.
It's such a good performance. And there's this moment that Ernie is holding Tina to supposedly comfort her, and he has the gun. And for a moment, he holds the gun to Tina's head, and then we cut away.
I think, he's holding...
Tell me, what do you think this is?
Okay, he's holding the gun to Tina's head to, threaten her into not opening it.
Oh,
not
really?
Not opening the door for Freddy, yeah.
See, I always felt like it's a little bit past her eyes, line of vision.
I think she knows a threat. I think she knows... Or if it's not a threat, then it's an insurance
if she starts to move.
If she starts to... Yeah.
See, and I've wondered before in this moment, because they are so screwed, I've wondered if it was that he would be considering, the misting himself.
Yeah.
And, killing her and him, because I don't think he'd just kill her, because then Freddy would just get him, you know what I mean? But I wasn't ever sure if he was considering a double suicide, we're just that screwed.
I think he would, but I do think it was a matter of...
An insurance.
That he would have killed Tina. Yeah,
that makes sense.
Had to kill Tina.
That makes sense to me. Meanwhile, in the basement of the medical facility, Bert has taken a baseball bat to the tar man, and apparently that's enough to clear the way for everybody to go to the basement and to get to the phone by the barrel. At this point, he rings the police, who answer him from directly outside the blockade, which you don't call 911 and happen to get the singular officer who's there.
Did they?
They don't transfer him, but it's fine. It's fun. I'll suspend disbelief. So he's on the phone with the blockade, and he's explaining that they're trapped in there, and they want to know what's going on, and he tries to explain that people are eating them, but then right at that moment, zombies mob the barricade, led by Trash, and they eat all the cops. And my favorite part is that one of the punks goes like, what is it? And he just holds up the phone while there's all this screaming on the other end.
Yeah.
Goes, cops. They got the cops.
Every single cop.
At this point, there is nothing more that he can do but finally call the number on the tank. And I have heard people theorize that if he had called the number on the tank right away, that the plan would have been different and that they would have just taken out, the one or two zombies.
I think if they had called the number on the tank before they burned the bodies.
Yes. But anyway, he finally decides to call the number on the tank. He's transferred to the government official that we were in the house of at the very beginning of the movie, and the official takes all these notes regarding the incident. He's asking these questions very calmly. He's in bed. It's kind of funny. And he gets, the acreage of the cemetery. This is helpful information for him. And the official returns to all that fancy equipment in his closet, and he receives a fax with live information of the outbreak. Bert tells the kids that the government told him that they've got a contingency plan to deal with this.
Yeah.
And the government wouldn't lie.
Oh, yeah.
The government wouldn't do something.
Spider, right, who's like, what, yeah, What's the plan?
I know. Spider, his spidey senses are tingling this whole movie.
Spider's got the most common sense.
He's got a lot of common sense, and I do think that there is an amount of healthy distrust of a lot of things going on that come from he's the only black person in this movie.
I know.
And I think that parts of the dynamic with him, and especially Ernie,
I know, he calls Ernie a honky earlier.
They are really informed by that, I feel, and in a way that, it just adds this little layer. I like it.
Yeah. It's not, like, at the forefront of anything, but he definitely has, like, his wits about him.
Yeah, the movie does seem to know, like, it's not like they just happened to cast a black actor, and maybe they did, but the way that he plays it does feel very informed by his place in this cast. But anyway, Bert tells him that the government's got a plan, and Spider's like, okay, sure. And so then we cut to the plan. And the mobile artillery unit receives a call with, by the way, did you catch that? It's a fake phonetic alphabet. They go Archimedes, hot dog, rhubarb.
Yes, yeah.
And they're giving this information, and they set missiles.
Maybe maybe that's the special alphabet they use for nuclear warheads.
Oh, good. I love that they have their own alphabet. And the missiles set course for the cemetery. And while you hear the missile whistling, you get this last couple moments that Bert is like, do you hear that? I wonder what that is. And then Freddy bursts through the attic and freeze frames, and then the whole town explodes.
It's Looney Tunes.
It is Looney Tunes.
Whistling and being like, do you hear that noise?
It's so
freeze
good.
Frame.
Also, the way that they described the distance that it had to travel, and it's instant.
God, it's so funny.
I love it. It's so good. So then the government official congratulates the artillery officer for his optimal placement, and that there were only 20 square blocks destroyed, and then he's on the phone with the general. He says that he wouldn't worry about the fires. The rain's taking care of that right now. There have been some complaints of burning skin. Don't worry about it. We'll get it taken care of before the president arrives in Louisville tomorrow. Great. And we watch the green smoke and acid rain as it wakes up all the dead, and we repeat that same shot of the skeleton leaping from the dirt from before. It is for sure the exact same shot. And party time drops one more time, and we roll into the credits. End movie.
Hell yes. Love it, love it, love it, love it.
Oh my god.
What a way to end. What a way to not have to resolve anything about your plot or fix the fact that your zombies are unkillable.
It's so perfect. And I love that they decided that, yes, in theory, the whole world could probably have a zombie outbreak, or at least a very wide range. I mean, when Canada burnt, we had stinky air, and we're in Wisconsin.
This is true. Yes.
It could be a big problem if you burnt 20 square blocks of a city.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big explosion.
If they knew that it was about zombies.
And yet they have 2 more movies, and they don't care. And thank God they do, because the third movie is excellent. It is excellent. So, Cass, I want to hear what are our favorite lines from the movie out of context. What's your favorite line?
My favorite comes from Suicide, and it's...
I wonder if it's my same favorite.
No!
Wait, no, I had options just in case.
You think this is a fucking costume?
This is a way of life!
Which has just got
That was my favorite too!
Yes, it's got such big, it's not a phase mom energy.
It does. It does. Well, and it's literally while, trash is grinding on him, and he's like, nobody takes me seriously, and he yells at her, and he pushes her. It's after he tells her to respect the dead. It's so good.
He's actual optimal goth kid,
yes.
punk, and everybody else is just not living the same sort of level of angsty lifestyle he is.
100%. God, I love that one. Well, then that is the line out of context, because that was my favorite too.
I know.
God bless.
What was the other one I had? The other one I had was... my other one was spiders, because you're one spooky motherfucker,
That was on my potential list. My other potential one was when Chuck goes, let's get some light over here. Trash is taking off her clothes again. Which is excellent.
What a friend group to have.
What a movie. I'm so glad it exists. It brings me infinite joy. And I've seen it a zillion times, and I'll see it a zillion more.
I will keep making people watch it.
I love making people see this movie, for sure. All right, we watched Return of the Living Dead, and we are really excited. What are we watching next, Cass?
I think it's going to depend. See, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get a hold of the Blair Witch.
I can rent it for $4. What do you mean?
Okay, but I know, unfortunately, I haven't been able to get my hands on the 25th anniversary extended edition of it because You can't buy the box set except for like $199 right now on eBay.
Devastating.
It's been sold out of the Blair Witch Project, which
Of
Kimberly
the Blair
has not
Witch Project. I have
seen
not
yet.
seen it, and I'm so like I know
She's
all
scared.
the lore. Like I love the story, like, and I mean the story of like in real life how everything went down. But found footage freaks me out,
It's
and
somehow the genre that gets
it's
you.
somehow the one that gets me. Although I've been watching a lot more of it lately, and I've been stomaching it way better than I expected. So maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's all in my head. Maybe I'll be fine.
I promise that despite this being wandering through the woods, it will not skin a Marinkas.
Please.
We will not be in a violent. You're not in a violent natured by
Oh my God.
Blair Witch.
Let it be a movie where stuff happens.
Things.
Please.
Okay, I'm gonna say not a lot happens for a lot of time, but in a way that is good.
Excellent. Excellent. So, if you want to see what we are up to, we are Scary Accurate Pod on all of the things. You can find us. There's an Instagram, there's a Facebook page, there's a TikTok, and there's scaryaccuratepod@gmail.com. If you have to bother us about some shit, go ahead. Bother me. I welcome it.
I will not respond to you.
No. Know that when you're reaching out, it's me. It's me, and that's okay.
Opinions don't matter.
Cass's excellent contribution is being here, and that brings me utmost joy.
I just meant I don't care about what they have to say about me or my opinions.
Oh no!
I just don't want to hear it.
You don't want to hear it. You don't want to know. So follow us there, and we'll keep putting things out.
See you next time.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
All right.